Threw me for effort.
At first I thought it was, and then when I looked, I thought, like, oh, hey.
They're actually a jolly bunch on that.
At least that's what I'm putting my money on.
Haven't had anybody not.
Pretty sure.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is December the 1st, 2014. The time is 7 p.m. and this is a regular council meeting. There should be a packet on the back table, and I think there are extra agendas as well, correct? We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3 on the agenda is the consent calendar. We have several things on the consent calendar. We have regular council minutes, November 3rd, and the special meeting on November 10th. We also have approval of claims totaling $120,830.14. And we have a pay request from Crow Wing County, and it's regarding seal coating the roads, and that amount is $74,698.20. Is there anything that you would like pulled off the consent calendar? I'll begin with you, Councilmember Maroney.
No.
Thank you. Councilmember Schmidt? Councilmember Lillihan? If not, the consent calendar stands as approved as it's laid out in front of us, and that does include the pay request. Are you good with that? As far as very good. At this time, I'd like to offer the open forum. Anyone who would like to come forward to the microphone, please state your name and address. You can speak to any item on the agenda or off the agenda. Thank you.
Hi, Madam Mayor. Pam Lillihide, 29828 Lakeshore Drive in Breezy. Just want to thank you for your 8 years of service to the city. Try not to cry.
Thank you.
I think that your calm and patient demeanor has done a lot for Breezy, and you've gotten us back on track, and just have a very nice community here, and it's due to you and your direction. I'm thankful for that. I'm also really thankful for your financial concern when there's been episodes of having to vote on increasing something that would raise people's taxes or whatever. You're taking the conservative route and voting against that, and so I thank you for that too. So anyway, just a huge thank you, and sorry to see you go, and hope that the next chapter of your life is just as interesting.
Thank you very, very much. I had intended to say something under the mayor's notes. You know, nobody does anything alone, and I would say I have to thank the citizens for putting me here in the first place and having confidence to let me stay. But the council members, everybody working together, and last but certainly not least, staff members who have worked so hard to make everything work for everyone else. Breezy Point is a good place. And yes, I will miss being here, but just think, we have an emerging leader who's almost there.
Oh, you have confidence in this guy?
But thank you very much for your comments. I'm very flattered and honored. Anyone else who would like to come forward?
We were going to do the same thing, but it's been done. So, thank you. We'll second what she said.
Thank you, guys. Now, I'm not supposed to cry. My husband sent me out the door and told me not to be sad. And so now, if you'll just stay quiet, everybody, I won't be. But thank you. Anyone else who would like to come forward and speak to any issue? If not, we'll close the open forum. The next part of our agenda is a public meeting. It includes information on Budget 2015. It will involve a resolution. Joe, it's all yours.
Good evening. We'll talk a little bit about the 2013 budget. A little bit of perspective about where we've been in terms of levy. In 2013, we were at $1,728,480. In 2014, the levy was increased a little more than $34,000 to for next year, we're proposing a $5,000 increase to $1,758,008, which is a 0.28% increase in the overall levy. This gives us a little bit of more detail about the operating revenue budget and the operating expenditure budget. Details are not something I'm going to go over, but I do want to just point out that in 2014, our adopted revenue budget was $2.25 million. For 2015, it will be reduced to $2,170,228. Looking at expenditures, 2014, we were at $2 million, almost $2.25 million. 2015, we're a little more than that at $2,264,513. I do want to point out in general revenue up here, we've got a pretty substantial increase from $355.9 to $519.5. That's due to public improvements we intend on pursuing this year without incurring debt service. Each year we take stock of what kind of financial achievements and accomplishments we've been able to follow, and this is our list for this year. I'm going to go over the highlighted ones. Following the plan, we keep decreasing levy professional rates. The levy in 2014 was increased $34,000. In 2015, levy was increased $5,000. Projected tax rate has been estimated at 44.166, which is a reduction from last year's rate of 44.389. Moving down to number 6, the use of credit cards for utility payments has very much contributed to better collections and better cash flow. That's been a good thing for us to do. In 2005 and 2008 improvement bonds were called and paid off early, resulting in significant savings. Number 9, the advance refunding of the 2004 and 2007 bonds has reduced annual debt service substantially. This is the only bond we have outstanding with the city. Number 11, an improvement project this year was accomplished for sewer and road improvements, and that was financed internally. And then 12 is our intention to pursue the future improvement projects without declaring debt. This pie chart shows the operating revenues, and you'll see the largest proportion of them are property taxes. The next highest area is debt service, which is also property taxes. But you see that the debt service amount is 13%. Last year it was 20%. So we made some strides in that area. This bar chart shows the comparison over a 5-year period of how we've been doing and how things have changed. You can see how debt service has been drastically reduced, the high being in 2012. Other revenue sources have increased and they've somewhat leveled off. Actually, most of our revenues have leveled off. And property taxes have remained relatively consistent with flat levies. Another pie chart, this time expenditures. And you'll see the largest expenditure, public safety, at 31%. Other general government is at 23%. Public works at 17%. You'll see debt service at 12%. Again, that was 20% for 2014. Our bar chart showing historical trends. Debt service again shows that reduction. Public works is leveled off. In 2013, we had a little higher year. Public safety has stayed fairly consistent, although it's increased in the last few years. And other general government has increased with us doing things internally rather than doing debt service or incurring additional debt. So what affects our taxes? Most people think about the levy amounts as the primary source of taxes. And yes, that's true. I mean, each jurisdiction, school, city, and county do levy for their operations. But other things like referendums, which are typically done in schools for The market value homestead exclusion increased taxes with reductions to residential homestead properties, but it did shift the burden around a little bit. Market value, property market value can increase or decrease based on, what's going on in the market or even with construction. Changes in taxing jurisdictions, total value can also adjust taxes, annexations, construction, countywide value adjustments, those sorts of things. And finally, classification changes. They're a little bit unusual. Typically, they're done at the legislature, but once in a while you get a residential property that turns commercial, and that'll change the taxes quite dramatically. So in Minnesota, we have a pretty involved way of doing taxation. It starts with the market value of the property, basically what the property should sell for. And then the state assigns various rates for each type of property. Residential property is at 1% for the first 500,000, and over 500,000 it's at 1.25%. Commercial properties up to 150,000 are 1.5%. Anything over 150,000 is at 2%. So when you look at what does that mean for the taxable value of your property, what value is used to grade your taxes? You start with a $100,000 home. The adjusted market value will be $71,760. Then you apply the tax capacity 1% and you get $718. A $200,000 home would have an adjusted taxable market value of $180,760. The tax capacity then is $1,803. Commercial properties, because of the higher rates, would see a substantially higher tax capacity. $500,000 commercial property has a tax capacity of $92.50, where a $2 million commercial property is $39,250. So you can see they pay a lot more taxes in proportion to residential property. This is a bar chart that shows the trend of tax capacity over a period of 10 years, starting with 2005 and 2015 on the right. The lowest tax capacity we had was in 2005 at $3,045,917. The highest appeared in 2010 at $53,96,414. In 2014, our tax capacity was $3,945,459. But we have seen an increase in that tax capacity of $3,976,874. So we're seeing some rebounds in values citywide. In continuing to look at trends, this is a little bit helpful in trying to understand what tax base gets you dollars in terms of operating income. In 2012, we had a market value of $417,696. The taxable market value, which is the homestead exclusion, reduces that value to $406,941,900. Then that number is computed down to tax capacity at $4,395,151. That tax capacity would get the city $43,952 in revenues for operations at 1%. When you look at 2013, you see the tax capacity decreased, and the rate we get at 1% is only $40,672. In 2014, again we see the tax capacity reduced, and the 1% rate gets us $39,455. And then in 2015, we'll see that our tax capacity has gone up a little bit, and our 1% rate gets us $39,768. So a small increase in values are obtained through that increase overall. This tax rate history shows the rates, and you'll see that the highest rate the city imposed was 47% back in 2005, the lowest in 2008 at 31.41. 2014, we had 44.39, and for 2015, we're proposing 40.17. But to try to put some of these ideas in perspective, when we go from 2010 to 2011, we reduced our levy $5,000, but we still saw an increase in the tax rate based on the declining value of the community. From 2011 to 2012, we kept the tax rate even, but the homestead exclusion came in, and that was the increase that we see in that tax rate from that perspective. From 2012 to 2013, that was the year we increased $34,000 in the levy, and that resulted in an increase to 42. There was also a reduction in the taxable levy at that time. In 2013 to 14, we saw 5,000, or excuse me, from 2014 to 15, we saw an increase of $5,000, but we saw a reduction in the tax rate because we saw an increase in the taxable value of the community. So when we talk about taxes, it's important to remember that it's not just the city. The city picks up 46% of the taxes that are paid. The county picks up 38%. The school district has 16% of the total taxes that are paid. The rates are shown here on the side. If you've got any interest in that. So what does this all mean for Breezy Point? In 2014, our tax capacity was $3,945,459. For 2015, it is estimated at $3,976,874. We increased 0.792%. That resulted in a decrease in the tax rate of almost 0.25%, 0.223. And so that $100,000 home that we talked about earlier would see a tax in 2015 of $317.11, or a reduction of $1.60. $200,000 home would see taxes in 2015 at $796.31, roughly a $4 reduction in taxes. Commercial properties, $500,000 property would see a tax of $4,085.36, for a reduction of a little over $20. And a $2 million commercial property would have taxes of $17,335.16, and that's a reduction in taxes of $87.52. So finally, how do we compare to other jurisdictions? You know, it's not necessarily fair to compare jurisdictions. Every city's got different needs and ability to pay. Nisswa and Cross Lake have a huge tax base, and the resulting tax rate is considerably lower than most. And then you've got cities like Ironton and Crosby, which have huge tax rates and likely have a smaller taxable value. We're sort of in the middle at 44.17, but we're still less than Brainerd and Baxter. And from that perspective, I think we're doing pretty good. And we're doing well for what we have to work with. And so with that, I'll conclude my comments and address any questions that council or you all want to have.
Okay, council. I'll start with Councilmember Williams. Do you have any questions or comments?
I do not. I'm pretty pleased.
Councilmember
I
Lowell?
do not have any questions either.
Councilmember Schmidt?
Well, I don't have any questions, but I do have some observations that I think should be brought out for the record in comparison on some of the things that if you've gone through the budget, you may be wondering why numbers appear as they do. For example, when you look at the operating expenditures, there are some noticeable changes from last year or this year to next. For example, we have a fairly energetic roads program that we'd like to implement, which reflects in the budget and shows a measurable increase from 14 to 15. There are some other areas, and I'm just kind of paging through here because I marked them prior to the meeting, and again wanted to just bring it to the attention of the council, and perhaps Joe could explain. For example, Joe, on the worksheet, I note that there's a police para aids and reimbursements, and I'm seeing where in 2014 it was budgeted at 32,000. Year to date, we're 46,142, or 144% of budget. And then when you read over to what we're budgeted for 2015, we're showing 42,000, which is about a $10,000 increase from what we thought it would be in 2014. What's the reason for that?
Well, in 2012, we saw actual share aid at 33,255, and we don't receive those funds until late December. This year we happen to get them the first part of December. So we did recognize and make an adjustment in the budget at the last minute to try to reflect more what it was. 46,142 is what was received. I guess it was October, late in October, that we received those funds. So we did make the adjustment to that. But not knowing exactly what was going to happen in 2004 based on the 2012, we were budgeting conservatively. There's funds from the state. There's no formula that's derived. It's kind of like whatever they allocate, they divide by the number of full-time officers in the state of Minnesota, and you get what you get.
I mentioned previously the difference in the expenditures on the general fund side, and I guess these pages aren't numbered, but on the page I'm looking at now with the it says other general government. That's, you'll see there where the 261.5 is road improvements, which if you compare the 14 to the 15 year, we're showing 355,902 for 14 and 519,505, and that's almost all attributed to that road improvement line item. Isn't that correct, Joe?
If I'm getting the right line, are you talking 550 or 533 under general government?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, we budgeted 91,000 for 2014. In 2015, we're at 261.5. The additional funds we received there were from the bonds that were retired, the two bonds that we talked about retiring, and so we funneled those funds into that line item to provide for some improvement projects. Those improvement projects will be assessed. The seal coating won't, but the road improvements from gravel to asphalt will be assessed. So some of those funds will be returned. But the goal here was to drag into to get some projects done without incurring debt.
I think under full disclosure too, the people of Breezy Point, I'm looking at the public safety worksheet.
Okay.
In 2014, we were budgeted at 671.15, and we're budgeting at 710,947 for the 2015 budget. The disturbing thing as far as this council member is concerned is under item 304, legal services. We had budgeted $2,500 for legal services in 2014. We ended up spending $17,684. And I see that we're going back to a $2,500 proposed line item for legal services in 2015. That's a disturbing number. I don't know how we ever try to compensate for those kinds of expenditures, or even attempt to try and guess what might be facing the city coming, down the road. But I think we're fast approaching some soul searching if this kind of thing continues, in my view. And I think I've expressed that opinion to you. I do, as I think that's about all I have to say. I wanted to point out that both the Public Works and Department, in looking at our sanitary sewer activities, that both of those budgets are reductions from what they were, and they're proposed from 14 to 15, and I tip my hat to those folks for they're doing a wonderful job, and you always like to see those kind of numbers when you're sitting here. Hopefully in future years we'll be able to figure out some way to be able to put more capital funds for improvements as far as Park and Rec is concerned. And again, I've expressed, I know Diane has expressed that opinion, and I wholeheartedly agree with her that I'd like to see some more thought given to bolstering that part of the budget so that we can add those kinds of improvements into this quote, quote, up north community, which would make it more livable and continue to make us a desirable destination. Other than that, those are my comments, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Joe, his staff, for putting this together. I think the numbers are good numbers as far as I know, and I know we've been working at it for several months now, so thanks, Joe. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Councilmember Maroney, would you like to comment?
I have no comments at this time.
Okay. This is a public meeting. Does anyone else in the room have a question or a comment they would like to make? I see no hands. I see no one coming forward. That means you have done an excellent job of explaining where we're at. We have before us a resolution setting the final levy and the budget for 2015 for the city of Breezy Point.
I'll move resolution 1427.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Further discussion. Councilmember Schmidt?
No further comments.
Councilmember Williams?
No additional comments.
Councilmember Mahoney? Councilmember Maroney? All those in favor of resolution 14-27 as it is illustrated in our agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? Motion carries. I've already made the comment I had as mayor. I guess I would like to add one thing, and that is over the 8 years that I've been sitting here, a number of you have come to these meetings, and it's good that you have. You've paid attention to what's going on. You've asked some searching questions. You've made the council think. You know, everybody lives here, and it's nice when people participate. So thank you for coming and giving us your time. I have nothing further to say. Council members, I have one item. I'll get to each council member, but you have airport runway plowing on your list, Councilmember Lillehei.
Right, I was approached by one of the officers at the for the Breezy Point Airport, wanting to know if we could reconsider having the runway plowed. They had brought this up last year at a council meeting, and we never really voted on it. We never really we discussed it just a little bit, and we didn't think it would be a good idea. And I said, well, so I told this, Denny Gartner was the one that brought it up to me. I told him, let's submit it again, because I think it is something that is very worthwhile. We do benefit, especially in the wintertime, from the standpoint of having the airport plowed, having it available in really bad weather, which is when we have the most risk with traffic accidents, and we may need the use of the helicopter to come in. So it's to our benefit to have it functioning well, and I told him to submit a letter, which he did to us, and I'm viewing it as they want to rent our equipment, and they would call us and say, can you plow it when we're in the process of plowing the roads? It wouldn't be that much of a deviation. It's a straight shot, just 2 swipes, one up and one down, I think is probably would do it. So, and they're willing to pay. So I think we should reconsider this and be able to support Public Works in doing the runway.
Thank you.
So I don't know if we want to open it up to discussion or.
Well, I think we should. I would like to ask, Joe, do you wish to add any further comments? You've put it together in the packet very well.
I just go by what we said the last time we had this discussion, so for people's policy.
And that is included, and you made it clear that we didn't, and you also made it clear, Councilmember Lilly, we didn't actually vote.
No.
So we're not in arrears of doing something incorrect for Robert's rules. I'll start with you, Councilmember Maroney. Do you have any questions?
Has Public Works looked at the project as far as what it's going to take to get it done? I mean, has their input been addressed?
We talked about it one day at the lunch table. I don't know if we got all their input addressed, and maybe you can ask.
Is there any concerns from your viewpoint as far as doing the project?
Well, I mean, as long as it's not like one of our initial concerns, we want to get our primary road and everything done. And then, after that, it wouldn't be an issue other than do we want to pre-treat the roads or do we want to use salt on it? Or, we want to just make sure all our bases are covered. We want to make sure if an airplane does land and is icy and we have power, then is the city responsible for it? We just don't want to open up the bag of cats.
I think
I mean, if we can get everything covered, sure, whatever, but, I just want to make sure all our issues are resolved first.
I think if my comments were to be is if we move forward with it, we have a pretty good letter of intent of what liabilities, if any, would fall on the city. I don't know if there would be an accident because it wasn't plowed. Is it falling on us? Just those kind of details to be worked out. As long as the city would not be held liable in any cases, I see no objection to doing that. I think it would be a great community service to have, especially the helipad area, to be plowed out.
Okay, thank you for your questions. What I would like to do here is have everyone ask for additional information. Then we'll have a motion, if someone wants to make a motion, and a second, and we'll have additional discussion, and then we can vote on it. Any other questions, Mike?
No.
Thank you. Councilmember Schmidt.
Well, Madam Mayor, I don't see any change in the council's, from what the council discussed back in January of this year and what I'm seeing being requested. The basics are simply, it's a private facility, it's a private runway. This city has I don't know if it's a written or unwritten policy, but we don't even clear off the ends of the driveways of the residents in Breezy Point, even though those openings are on public right-of-way. And when you get a heavy snowfall and you're looking at a 3-foot mound of snow, it's basically up to that property owner to clear it so that he or she has access to the city street. I understand the concern about the runway, but I think Michael raises a very good point, and that is the liability issue. If we take on that responsibility, and if we do get conditions where ice is on the runway and an airplane happens to skid off and slide into munchies or whatever, I can guarantee you the lawyers will be pounding on our door just as much as they're going to be pounding on the door of the Airport Association. In fact, I think if I was a lawyer, if something like that would happen, the city would be the first one I would come to, because they probably figure our pockets are a little deeper than the people who own and run that airport. I just think it would be ill-conceived for the city to set precedent where we're using city staff, city equipment, and plowing a private facility. I cannot see anything that would indicate merit for doing that. It might be a good gesture as far as public relations are concerned with that facility, but I think it goes much deeper than that. I don't disagree with you. I think we should have an up or down motion on this, and I would,
Any further questions?
I will, depending on how the motion goes, I will have further questions, yes.
Councilmember Lil'heye.
I was doing a lot of thinking about this, looking at, are we doing this for a private entity? And technically, the answer to that is no, from the standpoint of we do have a fee schedule for renting a truck with a plow. And I forgot what the rate is, I think it's like $200 an hour or something, or $150 an hour, something like that. I mean, that's already a schedule that we have. So, I mean, we offer that service. And them as a private entity, they're renting our equipment, and along with the operator. So from that standpoint, that's all they're doing. We're not taking on any liability of maintaining it open, we're just providing a service, which we already have a fee schedule for, and a policy to do that. So from that standpoint, I was doing a lot of thought. It really shouldn't even be coming before us, because they are taking advantage of a service that we already offer.
Any further comments?
No.
Questions?
This is supposed to be for questions, right?
Yes, questions.
Okay. In all the years the airport's been there, how do they plow it in the past? Who cleared it?
Right now, they're doing with pickup trucks.
And they don't like that clearing, apparently.
Their concern, at least as Denny told me, is at a certain point in time, they get these high snowbanks at the side that they can't clear. And they're afraid with the tipping wings, they can clip those snowbanks and have problems. And so that's why they asked us with the big plow and the side plow, to push it way further around.
Well, I have the same concerns Otto has about the liability. And I think it is a bad precedent to set. And what we talked about before is that it competed with private business. And we've never wanted to do that, because the other things we've talked about in the past where we didn't want to do things because there was private business already doing that.
Any further questions?
No, was curious about their past, plowing.
Okay, Councilmember Lil'heye, you brought this before us. You made some good points. Do you wish to make a motion?
I would make a motion that we offer our services as per our rental policy for them to rent our equipment to plow the airport runway.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Councilmember Lil'heye, do you wish to make additional comments?
No, I would just like to emphasize the fact that, at least in my opinion, I don't see us taking on any liability, because all we are is offering a service of something that we already offer.
Thank you. Councilmember Maroney.
I'd like to say that if this motion does pass, I think our fee schedule needs to have that clause of there's no liability being obtained, no matter if it's the runway or anything else that fee schedule covers that people can rent. As long as that clause, and we do not take any of that liability, and we can have a document drafted with said party that wants to lease the equipment under our fee schedule, I think it's a revenue source for us. It's helping with the helipad area for emergencies. If, however, it does not pass, then I think our council really needs to look at that fee schedule to see what is that there for and why do we have it. If we're not allowing a person to rent it for that fee schedule, then we've really got to consider that fee schedule and what that purpose is there for.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams.
I don't think we should proceed with this if you're going that direction. I don't know if it's going to pass or not. But I think we should have a legal opinion. You can have all kinds of stuff written on paper, but if it's not drafted adequately, I agree with Otto. They'll come after the city, or maybe the driver. Maybe even the driver and say, you know, he was fatigued or who knows what. I think it's thin ice for us, my opinion.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Joe, has city legal counsel been approached and asked what their feeling is? Well, I didn't think so. I took it upon myself to talk to a person licensed to practice law in Minnesota, and that individual was reminding me that the airport question was, is the airport city-owned? And I said, no, it's privately owned. This person indicated that if the council would agree to offer this service, that they do so under a contract. Michael suggested a letter of intent. I would say contract, and that the contract would indemnify the city from all liability, that the rate for the service be commensurate with the going rate that a private concern would charge for this service, pointing out that if the city is going to become competitive with a private service or services, then their rates should not undercut those private services available to this property. Also, it was suggested that the owners would agree to pay any legal services incurred by the city to draft the contract, and they would also agree to pay legal fees that the city may occur if sued by an injured party. I think what I think we're trying to do here is, if we are going to provide a public service, and I think we have a duty and responsibility to protect the taxpayers of this city to the fullest extent, and to do anything less than that, I think, well, I just feel to do anything less than what was suggested would indicate that we're not doing a responsible job here.
Okay, everyone's had an opportunity to offer their comments. You did touch on this in the very beginning, and I'm going to touch on it again. I do think that we have to keep in mind there are instances where citizens are taken to that area and they board a helicopter. I don't know the number of times in the last year or two, but certainly that is an important service that the city is offered, the citizens receive. The only thing we have on the floor right now is a motion to offer services per the rental policy.
Madam Mayor, may I ask for a point of clarification?
Yes.
Do we have any pilots in the audience? You don't need 3,000 feet of runway. You don't need 3,000 feet of runway to bring a helicopter into Breezy Point. And as far as I know, the medevac that we use is rotary wing, correct? Mm-hmm. I think if we wanted to pursue opening up a part of the runway so a helicopter could land and whatever, but I think that's a liability that certainly would be considered acceptable because we're dealing with a public service, and that's the facility we would use. But clearing up, I think that's what, about 3,000 feet of runway out there?
If I may add,
Please refrain from entering into this discussion.
if I may add a comment to amendment.
Yes.
I have seen when helicopters have landed for medevac, and I do know that, and I don't know if it's general practice or not, maybe the chief can speak on this behalf, but I've seen squad cars go down to the middle of the runway to sit there with their lights off, so that any inbound aircraft may see that there's something going to happen. the helicopter may not be there yet, but they're deterring any air traffic from approaching to get them off the runway so that they're not incurring on the runway. So it's not just the helipad that you have to worry about, it's getting the emergency service vehicle down the runway to indicate that an emergency is happening and a helicopter is landing. Maybe Chief can speak on behalf, is that general practice, is that just?
It depends somewhat on how many squads are available.
Okay.
But they do try to eliminate the runway through any traffic.
Thank you.
Okay, barring any further comment here, we do have a motion on the floor. As I said before, the motion at this point is relative to offering services per the rental property or policy. It does not, motion does not involve any verbiage about bringing in legal opinions. So we can...
Can I withdraw my second?
You certainly can. Do you want to withdraw the motion and rephrase the motion?
Okay, let me rephrase the motion that we would offer to the, how do I want to phrase this? We would offer to the airport, the rental of our plow, and that would be done under a contract that would that specifically would hold the city harmless from any liabilities.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I will second that.
Further discussion that isn't repetitive.
I'd like, if I may add for further clarification, that said contract would be sought after with our city legal services, and if they accept it and our city administrator accepts it, to move, maybe this is a question, but if city administrator and city attorney accepts the contract to be presented to the entity, does it need to come back in front of the city council?
Joe, I'm looking at you.
If we ask the city attorney to review it and I see no particular problems, it doesn't have to come back.
So at this point, I'm going to call the question here in a second. And yes,
This is a new motion, do I get to speak on
you do, but let me just clarify something. Is when I call the question, then whatever we vote, if we say, yes, we're going to proceed, you would take that to legal counsel, have the whole thing looked at, get his opinion, and if he sees no problems, then we move forward, okay? Otherwise, it would have to come back to council.
If the attorney sees problems with it, I would bring it back to council.
Okay,
And the draft will show that the city will not be held liable whatsoever.
Pretty much what I was saying.
Perfect.
Councilmember Williams.
it? Question here in the 2013 discussion, it said there was a liability issue since there was no formal understanding with North Ambulance. And I wonder, we only have this small bit of the minutes. What was that issue with North Ambulance and liability, and where they went? Is there any?
I don't think it was defined at the meeting, as I recall.
Well, I wonder if they should be consulted too, in any way.
I wouldn't recommend it. You are not going to get that as a large organization. Just getting the right people is going to be a nightmare. They're going to say, we're going to land the road. That's what's available. They're not going to waste their time with it.
So this is not the absolute only place they could land, is it then?
It is not the only, it is very helpful to have when you have a runway
Right.
designed for it, though. It is much safer than putting them on the runway. And it's GPS, pilots all know where it's at, law enforcement all knows where it's at, there's no communication issues. So I do, and we will want to continue to use that airport as the best place to land, especially since the far end of the runway, because of where the Oasis is, or whatever they're calling now, Nine Peaks, that we actually land the helicopter, we try to stay on that end because there's always the possibility of an airplane coming in low on fuel and it's still gonna need to land. So we try to utilize that end as much as possible, and it is the safest place. But North isn't gonna waste their time getting involved in this.
So you typically see them at the south end of the runway landing?
That's where we try to land, yes, because it's closest to, well, there's an access point off County Road 11 there also. And it's most convenient. We don't want to interrupt their flight as much as possible, and in an emergency, we still want to give them room to get a plane in an emergency. They won't unless they absolutely have to.
Any further questions?
Well, it still comes back then to the question of, well, clearing just that portion for the ambulance use. I don't know, I just have a problem with servicing a private business. What if we get overwhelmed with private businesses wanting to have, if a private thing here wants to be plowed by us? I don't know what other areas are not, but, I mean, they can come and finish my driveway,
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
It does serve a public good. It really does. We had another cardiac this weekend. That was, last I heard, it was still alive. So it does serve a greater good. And I don't see these other agencies asking also. But I think that the airport people are asking specifically because we have some specific equipment that suits their needs. And then it's because of the last 2 years, pickups just haven't been able to do it because it's been too deep. I don't believe they're asking for all the time. They're gonna call when it gets overwhelming. I guess my other reason.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and we have a second, and the motion involves allowing, when called, first of all, the indication is that we would not be called with every snowfall. We would respond to a call from airport personnel to plow, using the rental policy that we have as a guideline, but not doing anything until we have legal counsel look at all the possibilities of issues. And we also have to keep in mind what exactly does our rental policy say, so whether legal counsel looks at that or the council reviews it. If we can get all these ducks in order here, we do have the motion on the floor to go forward and at least take the first step and do some exploring in terms of legal participation.
May I ask Tom a question? When you spoke with the airport person, are they going to plow it with their pickup trucks, and then when the sides get too deep, have our plow come in? Is that what they're asking?
No,
or do they want us to be more or less?
There's two things going on there. One is with a real heavy snowfall, the pickup trucks just can't handle it, okay? The other thing is with the type of equipment when we're dealing with heavy snow. The pickup truck blade just chews up the runway, and the blades that we have on the snow plows have pads that float it, and they don't chew up the runway as nearly as bad as the pickup trucks. And they just got done replacing the asphalt here a few years ago in the runway, and so that's what they're trying to help preserve it.
Is part of this liability thing going to protect us if our equipment gets damaged over there? Say something's out in the middle and can't be seen and they hit it?
And what I have to reiterate is they would like to rent our equipment. That's all they want to do is rent our equipment. They'll call us and say, can you plow the runway and charge us for the rental, okay? We're not saying we are going to go out and do it for you. They're going to call us and say, I want to rent your equipment, go do it. We already have a policy for that.
That policy, I thought I recalled that policy was when we would, rent it, like say to Pequot or to Ideal Township. I always understood it was to another government, body.
It was originally designed as a FEMA approved type of response.
Yeah, I'd never read that and thought it meant I can call and have the city dig me a basement.
No, we never do that.
You know, so that's a different interpretation of renting the city equipment.
Okay, at this point, I want to ask, if I call for the question, or if I call the question, does everyone sitting up here know what they're voting on?
Well, Madam Mayor, if at point of order, you're allowing everybody to speak to this motion, may I speak to this motion?
Yes, but I just want to, I'm trying to get to the point where how many more times do I have to run up and down the table here?
Well, I don't disagree with you.
Okay, the question I ask, is it clear enough what's been said thus far? If you vote yay, do you know what you're voting for? I'm not calling the question, I'm asking a question. I see head shaking. Yours?
Mine
Okay,
just doesn't make a noise when I shake.
okay. I'm going to run down the table one more time, and I will start with you, Councilmember Schmidt.
I think there's an attempt here for some reason to kind of cloud the issue by focusing on a place for the helicopter to land and equating that with clearing the entire runway. And I guess I don't have any problem for finding a place for the helicopter to land. What I, again, do have a problem with is clearing off the entire runway. And again, my understanding of this rental of equipment, I didn't realize that we were also renting operators, city staff, to go out when we rent our equipment. I thought we were renting equipment, not city staff. Again, I think it's a nice resource to have here, but it is a private resource. It's not, if it was, no argument if it's a city airport. It's not a city airport, it's a private facility. And I think we'd be setting just a terrible precedent to respond to this.
Any other questions, comments? From you,
No.
Councilmember Maroney.
I think we've talked about it far enough here. I think again, if we vote no tonight, I think the fee schedule needs to be revised and clarified on what our intents are. And if we do vote yes, I think that the contract that we draft up for the specific use should be also in play for the remainder of the fee schedule of anybody wishing to rent the equipment and operator. I also think, while it may not be much, it's also just an additional source of income that the city may potentially have there.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams.
I have nothing else to say.
Councilmember Little.
Anything else?
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Thank you. Motion carries. With that comes a lot of work on the part of city staff looking into these various issues and reporting back to the council what you find. Thank you.
I'd like to offer a motion, Madam Mayor.
Okay?
I just want to make sure with this motion that we're clarifying what city staff is to do, because I think the motion we voted on was very vague and general in nature. I would move that city staff contact legal counsel and instruct legal counsel to draft a contract that would indemnify the city from all liability, that the contract would state a rate of service commensurate with rates charged by a private plowing interest, and that the airport owners would agree to pay all legal charges incurred by the city to draft the contract, and the airport would agree to pay any legal fees incurred by the city if the city were to be sued by an aggrieved or injured party.
Is that the end of the motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Before I ask for a second, Joe, do you need that motion to do what you need to do?
It does what I need to do, and I've written it
Do I need to call the question, get a second and call the question again?
You just need a second, I guess.
And then,
Call the question.
okay, may I have a second to the motion? Councilmember Schmidt, do you wish to make further comment?
No.
Councilmember Williams?
No.
Councilmember Lillehei?
I think this is substantial overkill, but I'll go along with it.
Okay, Councilmember Maroney?
The fee is similar to competitor. I am against that part of it. The reason being is we have a fee schedule set up. That's the only portion that I have an issue with what we currently have in the policy.
Okay, I'm going to call the question, and I did not write this down, but you did write it down, and you wrote it. So,
I got it right here. I'll give it to him.
very good. All those in favor of the most recent motion?
This is, just to clarify, this is an addition to their motion. It's not a revise of the first motion, correct?
It's a expansion of the first motion,
Thank you.
including all the things that were discussed. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are back to the first motion. We still know what you need to do. I think it's very clear. And I do think that we are overstretching this and making a mountain out of something that's very important, but you know, you can't protect yourself from everything, and there is something about goodwill. So, there's work to be done. You'll do the work, correct? And you'll get back to the council. Thank you. Committee reports, Personnel Committee. We have two members of the Personnel Committee here. Councilmember Schmidt, would you like to take the first one? This is regarding Sewer Manager, Assistant Public Works Supervisor, end of introductory period, grade change. And the person that affects is sitting right over there. Thank you for being here, Joe. Do you wish to make a comment? I know the Personnel Committee had a lot of discussion on this.
Yeah, they did, and actually, I would, on these two items, I would defer to Councilmember Maroney, if he wouldn't mind speaking to him. I think he did a wonderful job in getting both of these items addressed.
Councilmember Maroney.
Thanks, Otto. In regards to Sewer Manager, Assistant Public Works Supervisor, there's been some work in regards to Mr. Zierden's position. With the retirement of John Monier, Joe was promoted into the Sewer Department Manager. However, as Joe had outlined here, Mr. Rudberg has outlined, is that we have operated with two distinct departments in the past. Moving forward, it just doesn't seem logical to continue that practice and to start merging the departments together as one. So we looked at a title change, if you would, and re-looked at Mr. Zierden's job duties, and it required a grade change in that effect. That's what we're seeing here tonight.
Thank you. And this happens without any action from the council, having had the committee address this with your...
Making great changes to the case council action.
Okay.
And draft it.
Okay. Let's take these one at a time then. Do I have a motion to that effect? Councilmember Maroney, would you like to make that motion?
And I only did speak on Joe Zierden. Do you want me to speak
No,
on?
just
Okay.
let's do one at a time.
Okay.
Two motions, a status and a grade?
Do you need two? That'll be clarification.
Well,
The Personnel Committee can approve the job change, but the grade change is something that the council should approve.
Okay, so we're looking only at the grade change as far as a motion here. Would you like to make that motion?
I'd like to make a motion to make the grade change as from moving to grade 11, step 2.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do you wish to make further comment, Councilmember Maroney?
No.
Councilmember Schmidt?
I think we were in total agreement that Joe is doing a fantastic job for the city, and all of the changes that we've seen that he's recommended so far. They're saving the city money. We're getting a system that is running very well, and I think exceeds my expectations for a job well done.
Thank you. Councilmember Lillehei.
No comment.
Councilmember Williams.
I have no comment.
We have a motion on the floor to approve a grade change for the sewer manager, assistant public works supervisor, Joe Zerden. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to add that I know Brian was instrumental in working through these items too, and I just want to thank him specifically for the work he did on this item.
Very good. I know it took a lot of conversations and a fair number of meetings and kind of a new mindset, but everybody worked together, and thank you for doing this. Next item, grade change for finance assistant. Would you like to address this, Councilmember Maroney?
Can't pass it off to Mr. Schmidt. The Personnel Committee met to discuss the finance assistant grade change. The finance assistant has been actually delayed for quite a while for review of her job description, and as it was brought to the Personnel Committee, we discussed it, both Personnel Committee with Joe, and we also brought the finance assistant in to discuss further details, and really to grasp the whole concept of the requests at hand. In the end, we rewrote the job description, mainly like some clerical clarifications, also adding some IT support in there. And in doing so, we went through the pay equity comparisons, and found that a grade change was warranted with the job duties at hand. And while the grade change should have attended potentially sooner, we found that the negotiation was to backdate to the last review date of May of 2014. The Personnel Committee and the employee came to a conclusion that would be in the best interest, and that is what's in front of you tonight, to make that grade change retroactive May of 2014 on the anniversary date.
Thank you. Councilmember Schmidt, as the other member of the Personnel Committee, would you like to add any additional information?
No, I concur with what Michael said.
I'll accept a motion to that effect then.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
One second.
Any further comments on this end? No.
No.
Councilmember Lillehei?
No more comments.
Councilmember Williams, no. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. The third item that came before the Personnel Committee, and again, I know there's been a tremendous amount of discussion. I know that Joe has done a lot of research. Health insurance changes, health partners. Joe, do you wish to comment on?
We've sort of beat bushes and tried to get quotes from every possible source we could find, and it ended up that health partners had given us 7 quotes that were all better than the quote we had got from RTS Cooperative this year. And so with that, I think boys were given 7 different plans that are health partners, all cheaper than what we were currently seeing. We lowered on those plans, and the top 3 are listed in your memo and resolution.
Thank you. Does anyone need more information than has been presented in the packet? Councilmember Williams?
No.
Councilmember Lillehei? Councilmember Schmidt?
No.
Councilmember Maroney?
I would move resolution 1428.
Second.
I will accept Councilmember Maroney's second as part of the committee here. Further questions or comments?
No.
Councilmember Lillehei?
No.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is resolution 14-28. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Joe, would you like to comment on plan service provider, PSA and HSA?
Sure. In the past, we've worked with deductibles, and it's portable. Employees can carry it with them, if they change jobs or what have you. And so, it was, when we looked around and talked to our, the prospective healthcare provider, and he suggested that we look at this company. In looking at them, we found that their costs are about half the price of what we're paying for Freedom Services. And so we felt that making that change was warranted. We don't quite provide the same amount of backup. For instance, Freedom Services would write the checks for us. We have to write the checks instead. I mean, it's not a big deal. But from that perspective, it was just felt that this is a far better solution and a much better price. We will provide the plan documents for the health savings account, for the flexible spending plan, for the limited flexible spending plan, and the dependent care flex plan. At no cost, we just pay their annual fee. And so from that perspective, I'd like to go ahead with this group.
Council, I'd like a motion to that effect, and then we'll have discussion.
I'll make a motion to switch
I'll
to
second.
this company.
Councilmember Williams, do you have further questions or comments?
No.
Councilmember Maroney?
Sounds like a good deal.
Okay, Councilmember Schmidt?
Nope.
Councilmember Lillehei?
I agree.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, motion carries. B, Road Committee, Golf Cart Amendment. Consideration of ordinance 14-07, providing for a change in the term of the permit and the hours of operation would be appreciated. Your comments are included in the packet. Chief Merschman, would you like to make any further comments?
Nothing further.
Okay. As is explained in the packet, taking the permit to the end of the year simplifies things, and driving after when the sun goes down will be allowed anytime, I mean, day or night, they can drive the golf cart, correct? As long as they're doing it with the proper permitting?
Lights and taillights, not
With-
any taillights.
With lights and taillights. And will that be,
Brake lights too, brake
Brake
lights.
that will be made clear when they apply for their permit?
Correct.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for ordinance 14-07.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
And Councilmember Maroney, would you like to ask any questions or make further comments?
Just an additional comment, I've also asked that if motion passes, that on the permitting, where the individual coming in for the permit, we actually have a signature line acknowledging that they had received the rules and regulations on where they can and cannot drive, the stipulation of having nights, during the nighttime that you need headlights, taillights, and rear-facing brake lights, and also in the fact that Minnesota laws still oblige by driving while intoxicated can still be enforced. And I've asked that city staff include that signature line on that permit, so we have a signature just validating that they have received those rules and regulations.
Thank you. Councilmember Lillehei, do you have a question? Or?
I just have one question. When we add in this clause here, unless equipped with original equipment, headlight, taillight, and rear-facing brake lights, do we preclude then from anybody retrofitting those equipment onto their?
Kevin, and he didn't seem to think that was an issue if it's done appropriately. And I don't mean to paraphrase you.
Well, then that's the
That's what
question.
state statute states.
That's the question I have here, is the operative word with original equipment.
That's what the statute says,
Yeah.
copy it verbatim.
If the golf cart does not now have it, you can go down to, Napa Auto Parts and get brake lights and headlights and stuff like that and put it on there. Would that meet the intent?
The original equipment is up to you.
Okay,
I
that's
think it's-
exactly the question, is that left up to us, and how would we enforce that?
Flashlights and crazy, we aren't gonna get it.
I showed you what the statute said.
Right,
and
okay.
I think, we're gonna have to do our best.
I mean, I don't really have a problem having this statement in there, but we do have the operative word, original equipment.
And again, that's what statute says.
Okay.
And we're gonna try to enforce it.
Okay.
Councilmember Williams.
I understand what the question is.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Uh, Let me toss this out, and then maybe for the way I kind of read this is, and I'm not suggesting that this would ever occur in Breezy Point, because everybody up here has a fair amount of gray matter, but is there any chance that some chucklehead would actually take a golf cart out in the wintertime?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it hasn't been these last 2 years.
Just add alcohol.
They do make plow accessories for golf carts.
Well, the only concern I have is that I really question the advisability, because I don't think those things are all that visible. And especially in the wintertime, and you know, suggesting that probably the first person I see out there when it's 20 below zero driving a golf cart, I would pull them over. That would be probable cause to breathalyze them.
Any further question or comment?
Nope.
I have a question. We discussed at one time, how old do you have to be to drive a golf cart?
There is no age restriction.
So if you're 6 years old,
Well, you run into the issue of child safety that could come into play.
okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, consideration of ordinance 14-07, providing for a change in the term of the permit and the hours of operation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I will vote no on this. If the ordinance is adopted, and it has been with 3 votes, consideration of the summary ordinance would be appreciated. A 4/5 vote is required.
I so move.
Second?
Second.
I'll take Councilmember Williams' second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I vote yes, on this one? Even though I voted no before? Might as well do it the right way if we're gonna do it. Did you vote, Councilmember Schmidt?
You haven't asked for the nays.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, you voted nay. Thank you. We are at point 8, Administrator and Staff Reports, 2014 Sewer Report. Joe Zerden, you have a good written report here. Do you wish to elaborate or expand on that?
Yeah, there's just a few things. I kind of threw this report together pretty quickly. Since I had a little bit of time to review it in preparation for the meeting, there'd be a few things. As far as the meeting, storage capacity, realistically, I'm hoping to see 37 or maybe 36 million gallons. And this would be acquired mainly through repairing some inoperable valves that would allow me to draw down the primary pond further than it's normally allowed. But a lot of the things I'm going to try next year are going to be dependent upon whether or not riprap goes far enough so I don't expose the pond barrier, any unforeseeable problems, which I'll go next year once I start doing the work, and next fall have my drawdown to where I hope to see it. And then in conjunction with that drawdown, there's a certain set of problems I may encounter over the course of winter. And we have the ponds as low as they've been. Our secondary ponds, and what I'm concerned with is the pipes feeding our 2 tail end secondary ponds may freeze shut and not allow me to transfer water. The plan, what we're going to start doing is we'll transfer water weekly to keep the pipes open. So when we have to do full transfers, I don't have to unthaw the lines. But if everything goes well, then I'm able to do everything I hope. That'll help out quite a bit. Because John always looked at storage capacity as contributed to rain and snow. We keep track of all that. Affluent, approximately 17%. Typically, the MPCA considers whatever rain falls on the surface of your pond, an equal amount is evaporated, so they just consider them offsetting. But the data, from what I saw the last 2 years, that wasn't the case. And that's kind of what, when Herschel did our plant inspection, he said we have an ionine problem, and that's, I think, where he was getting it. And I talked to him a little bit, trying to figure out where he thought it was coming from, and that was his clarification. And I stated what I felt, and he said, well, that's entirely possible, but that is how the PCA looks at it as far as it's pretty black and white. They don't look at it as a wet year versus dry year. In the long run, evaporation, it balances out. I mean, in most years, you don't see a net decrease or a net gain in water storage or anything like that. This will be an ongoing project. I expect to know, how good everything works, how much we might actually create, and whether or not it's worth it encountering the problems we encounter. It'll be, a year and a half from now, approximately. We'll have to make the modifications, make everything work. If it can work, then we'll have to go through a winter to actually see if this works doing that way. So that's the reason behind this report, is just to kind of give you a heads up on that. And then I anticipate, if everything works the way I'm hoping it to work, our capacities fixed drop to about the 70% range. So it'd be 70 to 75% versus mid-80s, which is significant. And if it delays expansion 5 or 10 years, that equates to, that's a good thing for us.
Thank you. I'm going to ask council if they have any questions for you. Councilmember Maroney. Councilmember Schmidt.
No?
Councilmember Lillehei.
If I can echo that.
Have more coffee.
Yeah. No, I think Joe's doing a really good job as far as getting it into understandable language, especially for engineers that would like to look at percentages and stuff. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams.
A question, we might need expansion. That would be another pond we're talking about?
First, you'd have to conduct a feasibility report. They would make a recommendation. Just looking at things roughly,
That's water.
they're close right now as far as our irrigation capacity and our storage capacity. I think you'd have to do both at the same time. It's just how far would we want to progress? Do we want to use half of our available space, or use all our 80 acres for irrigation upon sufficient capacity to maximize that irrigation space for its lifespan? Because after that, we'll be out of room. We'll have to start looking at acquiring land. However, I mean, the maximum upgrade is its lifespan would be far past my career, I'm sure of that.
Thank you.
Something we consider as a date would be closer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for a very complete report. Sorry about the coughing attack. I'm going to fall over here in a minute. That completes our agenda for tonight. We are adjourned. Do you have one more thing?
One more thing. Okay. It has been 8 years since you came into this city as our mayor, and over the years it has been, we've had some trying times, and we've had some really good times. The last 5-6 years, whatever it's been, has been just absolutely wonderful. The changes in how the city has been run, everything from budget to staff relations to to the color of the napkins that you bring every time has been just marvelous. And I know Pam earlier echoed how thankful we are to have you as our mayor these last 8 years. And the staff and council have got this little gift for you so that you can maybe look back and remember us from time to time. And you can also use this to keep Art in line. You can gavel him to order, tell him when to speak and when not to speak.
Well, you know what? I love this. Now, this comes with a little complication. I can't accept any gifts, so could I meet you someplace on January 1st?
You even have something to hammer it onto.
Oh, too pretty. You guys, it even has words on it. I'm very flattered, but I honestly, Joe, this is a gift. I can't do this.
Came from staff and council members. It did
Right.
not come from public funds.
Right.
Well.
This is not an official city gift.
I am thrilled and delighted, and I will miss this, and I will figure out some way to use this really well.
It'll be great for hanging pictures.
Maybe once a month, I'll just sit down and call the room to order.
So as opposed to just having us say the meeting is over, I will make a motion that we would adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
I'm in favor.
All I'd like to have you do is pound that gavel and say
Right.
meeting adjourned.
It's too pretty. Let's see, I gotta protect it.
What's the end of it?
Meeting over.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.